Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the AV Experience. I'm Ryan. This is Jonathan. Bob is off in Neverland fighting the internet gremlins, but he will be joining us shortly. I just witnessed Jonathan do some nice, relatable man cleaning as he was just going, away with you, as things were behind him, and I'm just watching things fly across the room. Cleaning, last minute cleaning. It was very effective. We all
I had
know
about
how
10 pillows that are going inside those subwoofer boxes sticking on top of those chairs that looked really ridiculous.
Yes,
So
his room continues to change, and he has both of his arms and both of his hands, and all of his
digits.
phalanges. All of his I didn't see any subwoofers on the floor.
No, well, there's one over there. Trimming down.
Oh.
I got a little test set up over here where I was trying to do some DAT sweeps between the two, the old one and the new one. And my 16-inch box is up here where I've been testing. And then this is the most exciting thing. Check this out.
He river danced to me earlier. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this river dancing machine. The dancing machine as he gets up there.
Enough room for a hoedown up there. It's great.
Oh, man. Yes. So you talked about that 16-inch box or whatever it was. You took some flack, evidently. People were like, why aren't you doing measurements this way? Where's your bracing? Where is this? Why are you not outside? It's like negative 10 degrees in Kansas after he posted this.
Yeah, you can't really please everybody. And then when this week, I got a little more detailed and asked the question, like, is there anything else you'd like to see on DATs before I put these things in their boxes, their homes? Crickets, crickets.
Well, you asked. They're not going to be vocal when you ask. That's being too polite. You can't say anything, and then they're going to say something.
Yeah.
So
the cool part on that testing is that the new Ultimax UM1822 version 2 has quite a bit more, almost like 3 dB more above 30 hertz.
Yeah.
It's more efficient driver and the same exact below 30 hertz. Yes. So there's that's a win. Now that comes down, I haven't done the excursion testing yet. That's part of the equation. But assuming the excursion is like what Dayton says, it's a better driver.
So remember, I told Bob this earlier when he was on before the internet gremlins took him and ran away with him. He's back now. He must have fought him off.
I did.
I told Bob earlier that I think I figured out why I was like clicking or making that noise last time, supposedly, that people said it was me.
Yeah.
So this is very embarrassing, but I'm a glutton for self-punishment, right? I will freely admit and talk badly about myself. If I'm going to be a sarcastic butthole to everybody, I better be able to talk badly about myself. So I had my headphones on last time, and I realized before the stream, I'm glad I got here when I did, because I realized that my DAC wasn't on. And when my DAC's not on, it means one of two things have occurred. I've encountered a power outage because it doesn't turn back on after I've had a power outage, or it lost connection because it'll time out. So then I turn it back on thinking, oh, there was a power outage somewhere, and evidently my camera decided to turn off. There was a power outage somewhere. So I turn it back on, and I look at it. Scanning. So it couldn't see my computer. So the reason it was clicking last time, I had my headphones on, but the sound was playing through my speakers. And I thought it was coming out of, so I had music on and I had your guys' voices on, and I thought it was coming out of my headphones, and it was coming out of my dang speakers, and I wasn't paying attention.
Are those headphones open ear to give you a little grace? Okay. Yeah.
So
that can make a little more sense.
They are open ear. They're not closed back. So I can definitely hear everything. Like I can hear music coming out of my laptop and stuff, but the imaging on my monitors must have been pretty good if I thought it was in my head. So or I'm just not qualified to be doing what I'm doing. That's probably what it really is. My qualifications right out the window. Somebody's going to make a post on AVS, and it's going to be like, did you hear that guy from Ascend AV? He just doesn't know what the sound is from the pair of speakers or headphones. I can't trust him for anything. I mean, that's where it's going. Yeah. Untrained listening, untrained ears. Speaking of trained ears, our task for this week, which we will get to after we get to the movie, was 2-channel music that sounds like it's surround or not stereo. Jonathan, this is not your cup of tea.
No. In fact, I realized as I was thinking about this that I haven't listened to dedicated 2-channel in probably like 10 or 12 years, like as a regular thing. But I still have some memories of things. So I had a few of them. And
back in my day, 7 moons ago, 9 score and set, whatever that is, I listened to music on 2 channels.
I mean, even before Atmos was a thing, I'm talking like back in 2010, 2011. I used to use all channel stereo on the Onkyo, which is a better implementation than Denon and Marantz because they elevate the front, left and right speakers 3 dB. So you still have a front soundstage presence, and it just fills in the room.
Remember when I was talking about my credibility going out the window? I think we just say Jonathan's right down with me. As
a lot of people like
channel
that.
stereo.
I don't. Denon and Marantz is a bad implementation.
I don't think I've ever liked all channel stereo. It's loud.
Oh my goodness!
It's fun, but like the Denon, I don't even like it, or the Marantz. They do the same thing. Every channel is the same level. That's not good. You got to still have a forward soundstage, and Onkyo does that just by adding 3 dB to the left and right.
You could just use.
You could do the same thing on Denon and Marantz, but just out of the box.
Use an up mixer.
All right, before we get back to this, before we get into this nitty gritty, how have you guys been? How was your week, Jonathan? You've made progress. We'll get to you in a second. Bob, how have you been?
Other than cold,
yes.
I've returned my room to its old state of sad. So I mean, all the borrowed equipment's gone.
Yeah, the wides are gone.
The wides are gone. They're the toolboxes that they were sitting on are back in the shop.
Oh,
because I don't have enough decode channels to support wides. But honestly, it's been kind of fun to change things back. I've been playing around more with CMD on the JVC. I can't say I like it, but it was better than I remember it being.
They did improve it in the last firmware, I hear.
They did. Yes.
And that might have been better. And that might have been it because I don't know if I've ever used it since I bought it originally, didn't like it. I've been on like CMD low with the motion enhanced high, which I guess improves the panel response by increasing the voltage they send to it. Theoretically,
myself, but
I've only noticed a difference when I'm using like other things with it, and it's fine. It's not great. It does a good job as long as things aren't moving too fast. Once things start moving too fast, it just gets lost. High is not usable, but it's fine. It's not great. The switching back to the Lindorf over the Trinov, the convenience and ease of use of the Lindorf is outstanding.
Mm-hmm. That's what you're saying.
The on-screen app is faster, easier to use. It's quicker to change modes. It's just faster overall. And the fact that I can directly stream music to it from my phone versus having to turn things on and use an external player through HDMI.
I mean, you could directly stream to it through Rune.
Through Rune, but I don't have Rune anymore. And you can't get Atmos through Rune.
No.
So, but with Tidal Connect, which that supports, you can directly stream Rune just right off your device. And it's crazy convenient. And I guess maybe you guys can do that on the Apple side too, but I'm not in that platform. So I've not gone down that road yet.
So what did you do? You said you changed some stuff with your subs.
Yeah. So in the past I had been using stereo subs because I get a little bit wider soundstage. Mm-hmm. The drawback to it is because I don't have one sub fixing the shortcomings of the other. Mm-hmm. And also supporting each other. They each have to work harder for their individual channels, and the coverage isn't as good. I had switched back, and it was a lot better than I remember also. Like, it hits harder. It's fuller. I like it. I made a couple mistakes when I redid this one. I'm not exactly happy with this run, but I didn't have enough time to rerun it again today because it takes an hour plus. So there's some room to improve a little bit, but I can't say anything wrong about the sound of it other than the fact that it's a black box you can't change. Mm-hmm. And that is the one drawback to the system.
But sometimes that's a good thing because you can't get in and finagle with it. You can't get in and change it. You got what you got, and you got to be happy with it.
You get what you get, and honestly, I'm always really happy with the result. The tweaker in me wants to change stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Understandable. Jonathan? You've been playing with subs.
I've been tinkering back and forth with the 1822s, the version 1 and version 2. I did some DATS
that
testing.
at the beginning.
I did some frequency response testing. I finished one of the boxes, and I'm pretty close to finishing the second one as far as like loading the driver and having the cables and wired up and everything. I got to hopefully get them all 3 done this weekend because we got our visitor from out of state on Monday. Jeff's come through to see both of our theaters.
Is it Monday?
I think it's Monday. Am I a week off?
Or is it Tuesday?
I thought it was Monday.
It's Monday. Just ignore me.
We're only ready for you, Jeff, Tuesday.
Yeah. Sorry, Jeff. You're here, but I was ready for you tomorrow. So you have to go away now. No. So we got him coming Monday.
Watch Downfall, which I absolutely still adore. I thought the movie was wonderful.
Adore?
I think it's a
That is not an adorable movie, Jonathan.
I think it's a fantastic movie. It's like what cinema should be.
No.
It's all the heartstrings.
That is the wrong adjective.
No,
the
that's
wrong adjective. As somebody said, you're like, I had to turn it down for Overlord. I was on like -60 for my subwoofers. And then you're like, I adore Downfall. No, not at all.
Not like a stuffed animal, just that I think it does everything right. Like, I love the movie.
It is a phenomenal piece of cinema.
It is a great piece of art cinema. But that's
phenomenal movie. Phenomenal movie. I had to turn it off.
And
Jonathan was turning down the subs in Overlord. Like, he was like, well, why doesn't gore get to you and stuff? It just doesn't. It's not relatable. I mean, it is relatable, but like when that happened, I'm thinking of my kids and I'm like, I can't do this.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what, but it's what the awesome part of it is.
It's not awesome.
If you can use it awesome, is that it didn't take liberties. Like, it's supposed to be very historically accurate.
Oh, no doubt.
It's not the typical Hollywood fantasy.
No,
it's what happened. I mean, you can go and look up each of those pieces. That's what happened.
Oh,
as best they could tell. They did lots of interviews from the people that were in the bunker during that time and mapped it out like it was.
Yeah.
Oh, I have no doubt. No doubt. And I will go back and finish it. But when that happened, okay, we're going to talk about spoilers. So just so people know, after this point, we're going to talk about spoilers. So here we go. When that happened, when Frau Goebel put her kids to sleep with the medication, had them drugged, and then slipped them what looked like cyanide or something, and then killed all 5 of her kids, I just could not do that.
That's heartbreaking.
That was awful. Awful. The whole movie was just, it was very, very sad. But it also showed, I think, the brutality of humans.
Yes.
Like, it is brutal. Just what was going on, life, and it's not really any different now. I mean, we think it is, but a lot of that stuff still happens and exists. It was a phenomenal movie. It was very emotional.
Acting is amazing.
Oh,
like,
so
there's
good.
not a bad actor in there. Even the kids.
So good.
Like, it's gut wrenching.
So good.
It won
this
all
is worse
kinds
than
of awards.
Schindler's List. Oh, sorry. This is worse than Schindler's List. That scene by itself is one of the worst. I very rarely have to turn things off, and I just said, nope, not right now. I'll come back to that later. I'm not doing that right now. So I had to turn that off.
I love the sound effects in the background. I know, Bob, you said you had to watch it in stereo, but with the 5.1 even up mixed, the bunker, all the explosions that are going on in the background, the rumbles, everything, it sounds visceral and real. And there's like some of the explosions when they're outside are just like intense. Like everything about that movie's intense.
That's what I was going to ask. Is that actually, was there a solid like explosion ambient audio soundtrack?
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay. One of the most remarkable that I saw was when they were running from outside to inside the bunker or in a building, and they ran in the door shut. It totally transformed how everything sounded. And it was just really, it wasn't over the top. It just felt like more realistic. And I liked that they were in this bunker and it sounded like you were in a bunker.
Yes.
So like when Hitler was yelling and screaming, it was like you were in a concrete box. They didn't try and get rid of all of the echo and the background ambience and stuff. It
sounded so real. Everything
like you were
there.
there.
Like you were right there with them.
Yes.
Everything.
Yes.
I wish I had that version. Yeah, the version that I streamed on Peacock because it was on there. And I'm like, well, it's here. I can get it. And I think it was just like 2-channel. It was like a 2-channel German track was the audio. It was the only audio available.
Yeah, you have to watch subtitles.
Right, and I did, but I mean, I don't think there was an option for surround sound.
That's a bummer. When you watch it again in 10 years, try to make sure to get the surround.
Yeah.
Oh man, that
go get it from the library.
It's one of those movies that sticks with me so long, and like to me, I know a movie is good when I wake up the next day and can't stop thinking about it. And that was me today. Like the very first thought in the morning was like thinking about that situation at the end with the Goebbels, with the killing the kids, with the SS officer that's a medical officer who does a similar thing to his family at the table.
Oh my gosh.
Just like that stuff haunts you, and it will be in your head for years and years. And whether it's fictional or real, it's all the more like intense when it's real. But a movie that sticks with you like that all these years later, that to me is a good movie.
But evidently Jonathan finds it adorable.
No, I didn't say adorable. I said I adore that. Like that is the kind of movie that is a good movie. That's all.
Adore is not the adjective I would have chosen.
That's probably a poor choice.
Striking.
Yes.
Maybe.
Memorable. There's a bunch of things like that, but
not adore.
Not yes.
The thesaurus does not go down to kill children and adore is right next to it. That is not how that goes.
I simply mean that it's probably in my like top 10 movies. I'm not going to put it at the very tippy top, but it's probably in my top 10.
That was a very good movie. Very good movie. There was not a moment that I felt, and it's not an action movie. Like it is not at all. There's a couple scenes that they invoke things, but it's not action at all.
It's just intense and like has you at the edge of your seat and just like watching this unfold that you know generally in history, but you don't know all the specifics, and it humanizes the whole thing. You see the psychological aspect of how people get like completely pulled into a cult line of thinking. Like Goebel, the reason she wanted to kill her kids is because she didn't want them to survive without a Nazi socialism.
So sad,
so crazy, like such crazy. But that's how that works, right? It gets in your head, and you think, like, if you study any cult things, I have some history with that. It's just psychologically interesting the whole time too. I loved it. The main actress, the secretary who they interviewed in the beginning and the end of the movie, like she's the real secretary. That some of this is her like recount of it. And if you watch the behind the scenes documentary, if you have the disc, it's really, really interesting to watch how they got all the information and made sure it was accurate and just went down the line.
That movie was something adorable. I'm gonna write it in my letterbox review.
I adore the movie.
I'm gonna letterbox review. It's gonna be Jonathan, quote unquote, adorable.
No, don't misquote me now. I adore the movie.
So Paul, totally off topic, says, Paul A, so you're saying I'm getting my home theater knowledge from one guy who can't hear and another guy that likes to hear the same thing from every speaker. Yes. For better or for worse. I mean, yeah. I mean, maybe it was working. I don't know. It was just when I looked over and on, and then I'm trying to correlate different things of, well, they were hearing clicking, and maybe they was trying to get the speakers out. I don't know. It just made sense to me, and I can't hear, so who knows?
It's easy to make that mistake.
I mean, you got it. I don't know. I don't know. No excuses. No excuses. But let's jump into tonight's topic. Well, before we do that, actually, what do we want next week's movie to be?
I mean, we want to stay along that same theme. We can do Iron Sky if we want to go on the lighter side.
I haven't seen that one.
Do you know what it's about?
No.
Oh.
Is it another horror movie?
No, it's not a horror movie. It's not. It's not historical either. God, do I want to even say it? Anyone else in chat seen that movie?
Let's do. I had something, and I don't. Chat, do you have any suggestions on what we should watch? I had something, and I don't remember what it was. Do we want to watch anything for the Academy? Any of those movies?
Like Police Academy?
No, like the Academy Awards, Police Academy. Jesus. No. I want to watch Juror Number 2 by Clint Eastwood. I want to watch that.
I think you guys want good movies. I have a lot of bad movies.
The new Venom. It's probably terrible, but
I watched the original Venom for the first time in the last year, and I kind of liked it.
I don't mind it. I liked the first one.
I don't know if I've seen the second one yet, though.
Which was the original one?
Venom.
Tom Hardy's in it.
Yeah, it's Tom Hardy.
Is this the third one now? It's the third one, right? Or is it the second still?
Ryan Kramer, it's the third one. Ryan Kramer says, watch the movie Flow for the next week. No dialogue, and it's nominated.
The Flow?
Did Wild Robot come out yet?
Yes, it did.
Do you want to do Wild Robot?
I will absolutely do Wild Robot. We're going to watch it this weekend.
Jonathan, Wild Robot?
I like it. I've seen it. I'll watch it again.
All right, let's do Wild Robot. I want to talk about that movie. Let's do that.
You've been talking about that every week.
Oh, it's so good. I haven't watched it in the theater yet. It's so good. And it's good on a sound bar. Good Lord.
All right, we'll watch that. We'll do that, yeah, because my kids really want to watch it.
Okay, good suggestion, Charlie B. Tonight's topic. Can two-channel sound like stereo? Can two-channel sound like stereo? Good Lord. Can two-channel sound like surround? Can stereo sound like surround? Evidently, when you put it into all-channel stereo that Jonathan adores, you can absolutely do that. But
I think the Doors word is just going to keep turning up.
I want to start with Jonathan because he doesn't typically listen to two-channel. Bob and I do a lot of two-channel. I would say primarily our setups when we're doing stuff is listening to two-channel music a lot of times. Bob may have been getting more into Atmos.
I've gotten into a lot. When I had easy access to play Atmos music, I became very into Atmos music because it was convenient to get to. Mm-hmm. And when it was inconvenient to get to, I didn't listen to a lot of Atmos music.
Mm-hmm. But you're just music in general.
Oh, yeah. I watch much more. Unless my wife is down here, I generally don't watch movies by myself. I listen to music.
So, Jonathan, I want to...
Yeah, so my list is going to be pretty short. But here's the thing. Like all these years I've listened to upmix, so I can tell you a lot of songs that sound great upmixed. But just stereo, played to stereo speakers, it's going to be a short list. I remember going to a theater. The guy's name was Mark, and his last name I won't put on here. We don't need it. But he had played Michael Jackson Thriller, just two-channel, two speakers, and it sounded like that intro where the footsteps are kind of walking around. Mm-hmm. It sounded like it was horse-shaped in the room. And I always remember that being real neat because most rooms I've listened to that song in a lot of rooms since. I always kind of like to test it. I don't know that all rooms do that, but his room certainly did. In fact, he had his receiver. This is a really, really nice pro-designed, pro-implemented room. And I remember even challenge him hey, let me see your controller. Let me see your interface on your receiver. There's no way this is stereo. And he proved it out. It was stereo. And it just sounded like the footsteps were walking in a horseshoe around the front part of the room. So that was cool. Mm-hmm. My room doesn't quite do that with Thriller. I get a little bit of it, but not quite as wide as his does. Madonna Vogue is something that I've heard over the years where there's kind of what are you looking for? What are you looking at? Or something like that. Yeah. It's a voice that kind of sounds come from a wide location.
Yep.
You showed me this Francine 13 Queen Mary that I think has some neat,
Queen Mary's great.
It's a great track. I was going to bring that one up too. Yeah.
Sound. That was one Ryan showed me. And then, I made a thread on AVS forum that I'll link in the chat for people to look at a whole lot of other recommendations. I won't go into all those because I don't want to spoil anything you guys have. But there are a lot of neat ones, and I've checked them out this week and made a little playlist of neat stuff that's exactly like you was talking about, where it fills up the room nicely. Now, in my experimentation with this week, based on that thread, I noticed that it collapses real fast if you don't, that kind of magic that happens with some of the different tracks. If you turn your head like this, it's gone, obviously, because you're no longer angled directly to the speakers, getting the phase right. So it's not as anchored as like a Dolby Atmos or upmixing because there's no real speakers. So you hear more or less the front half of the room activating, not so much behind you, maybe a little bit behind you, in my experience, but you have to be real still and you have to be center position. So those are my observations.
Did you like it?
I didn't find anything that I liked as much as a good Dolby Atmos track, but I did find stuff that surprised me at how much it did, especially in that thread as I navigated through that thread and got some recommendations.
Like what? I mean, we're doing spoilers and stuff, talking about.
Sure. So one of the ones that I put in here that I thought didn't collapse as much as some of the others when I turned my head, which was interesting, was kind of like a techno dubstep-ish one. Let me find the name of it. I got it here in my thread. Very close, very close. And there's a whole lot of commentary in here on different people suggesting different things that are worth checking out. It was called Make Us Stronger by Ghost Rider. Yeah. Have you guys heard of that one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That one seemingly didn't collapse much as I turned my head, because that was kind of one thing I was always experimenting with. Like, how much is this?
I actually have Ghost Rider on my list.
Some of the other ones, I'll just run down them real quick. The ones that I liked from that thread off the top of my head: Pink Floyd Sheep, MC Scat Cat, Scat Strut, Sting the Soul Cages, multiple Roger Waters song. I was listening to that album some, and there's some really cool stuff on there. Now I have a question for you guys if you've listened to that, like some of like Amused to Death, What God Wants Part 1, Watching TV, 3 Wishes, The Ballad of Bill Hubbard. Those were all having like stuff outside of the LR. Mm-hmm. But most of it was on the left-hand side, because a lot of it was like a TV or a little radio station that was kind of faint, and it was coming from my left side. And I was curious if that's because I have an asymmetric room or if that's where that's positioned. So if you guys get a chance to listen to that, you'll have to let me know.
I have to listen to that.
Yeah.
Make Us Stronger by Ghost Rider, I mentioned. Help Yourself by Julian Lennon. Love Sick by John Kennedy. Gwaley Morans by Apex Twin. They Just Haven't Seen It Yet by San Holo. Last Force by Smirk. Chocolate Chip Trip. Bubbles by Yas.
Let's talk about Chocolate Chip Trip, because Bob was over at my house this week, and we actually did some stuff with Chocolate Chip Trip.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Chocolate Chip. So there's actually a lot of things that happen with imaging and stuff that I don't think a lot of people take into consideration. We won't talk about a lot of them, but one of them is the room itself and what is going on with auto EQ and neutralization of frequencies.
Or phasing and reflections.
Mm-hmm. So what we found is that when you use something like art is great in some senses, but when we were doing something like Chocolate Chip Trip, we found the soundstage collapsed with it because you're neutralizing your reflections. So when we switched and went to like Dirac live bass control or went over to the Trinov, Chocolate Chip Trip in my room goes in a circle. It goes up to the speakers and then it'll come back, and then it actually sounds like it's going through your head and then comes back around. It's a really weird feel. It's super cool, but it's a really weird feeling. But when you go to art, that disappears.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It doesn't disappear. You lose the phasing, but you lose the ability to like image behind you through phasing.
Well, it turns into a horseshoe.
Right.
Yeah.
You're still getting
the back part of it.
Yep.
So there's a lot of things, and I see chat talking about it. There's a lot of things that come into the equation with this, but I think the room is a big part of being able to do stuff with and how the sound presents and how wide and what it's doing. And reflections are a big deal. And there's a reason why people don't like super quiet rooms. There's a reason why you want a certain amount of reflections, because if it's super quiet or super dead, you're going to lose a lot of that width,
your spatial cues,
in your front soundstage. And we as people rely so much on boundaries that if you don't have them, it doesn't sound natural. Yeah. So when you do have reflection points, and if they're controlled, and you have speakers that have really good sound power, and first reflections and everything's very similar, it can be an amazing experience. But when you've got speakers, and this is why that gets brought up in Spinoramas, when you've got speakers that don't do very well with that kind of stuff, it can cause some issues.
And you need to treat reflection points significantly heavier than you do otherwise.
But if you do that, then if you're treating your first reflection points, you can limit how wide things end up becoming.
Yeah.
So, Jonathan, it's not a normal thing for you. Not a go back and do. You vastly prefer.
I will
stereo,
keep continuing to explore that thread
stereo.
because there's a lot of people inputting neat stuff, and it's fun to hear something different. And like some of it, like several times when I'm listening to that, I had to go check. Like, is mine in Atmos? Did this track come up in Atmos? And it's pretty remarkable when it can do that. The only thing that irks me a little bit is its trickery, right? If you're not in the exact center seat, you're not going to get the same effect.
Correct.
And if you turn your head even a minimal amount, it fades or goes away completely if you turn it like that much. Like it's gone. So it's very like stoic listening in the proper position to get that effect.
Oh, I do not feel that way.
You've got to be reasonably careful. There's a little bit of leeway. But I mean, it's not, you can get a great surround sound field easily through, through Atmos. You don't have to do as much work to get a good convincing 3D sound field. It takes a lot more setup work, a lot more configuration, a lot more room treatment, just a lot more everything to get stereo to sound that way.
But man, when it does,
it's really cool.
Oh, it's so good. So good. I use the room, the Mad VR Experience Center, almost primarily for 2-channel. Like I was sitting in there for like 2 hours today while I was working, and it's just, I constantly find myself just sitting there thinking, man, how can this get any better? It's just so good. So good. So Bob, what were some of your takeaways from this?
Well, I guess before we get to that, like I happened to see a little yellow Lego man pop in there, which is someone who's also on the Discord, who lives locally to Kansas City, and he has a box system, which you just mentioned. And if any of you guys are familiar with that, I know Ryan and Jonathan have both experienced that before, right?
A box system?
That's that phasing system that does this the 3-dimensional surround off 2-channel.
No, I haven't experienced that. I don't think.
Neither of us have.
Ryan, you've seen it at Expona before, but
I've seen it, but I didn't do it.
We sat in the seats, but it didn't work there. So that
it's still got to work for one channel, though, doesn't it? It's still got to work for one seat, basically.
It actually works for a line. It doesn't work for a seat.
Okay.
So the way that system it does controlled phasing to generate a surround field again. It's got even more complex than just doing it. You have a set of headphones that you wear, like the headphones are in-ear microphones, and it calibrates the system based off these in-ear microphones. Has a camera that tracks your head for when you look so that it can compensate for that. There's a box that they sell that does it, or there's a Mac app that does it that requires a couple things. But it is really neat with what it can do. You can create full 3D sound fields through phasing if you're sitting in the right spot.
And it plays it out of your main speakers, not headphones.
Plays out of your main speakers.
It's hard to sound like that Smith analyzer, but that used headphones after you're done.
This does out of your main speakers.
Okay.
And so the first time I experienced this system, I was coming back from a camping event where they'd been playing a lot of music, and I had an ear infection. So I did not really want to put someone's headphones in my ears to calibrate the system to me. So I didn't quite get the full effect. But actually I sat behind the couch. He had a bar set up behind the couch, kind of like Ryan, your old setup, and sitting in the same chair right behind the main listening position. With my uncalibrated situation, I actually got a better 3D sound effect sitting behind the main listening position. And it was really neat. The things the system can do are really cool. In a non-ideal room, in a non-setup configuration, it falls apart pretty quickly. So they've demo it usually at Expona every year. And I've listened to it 2 times there. One time it was okay. Last year's, I think, it just sounded like a phasey mess. It didn't really work. So that's another one of those tweakers things. But when there's some really cool things you can do with that system. And
it seems like a really hard thing to demo at Expona if you can only really have it for one seat and you got a room full of people in there.
Like they do it as they set a line of like 3 people in a row. And so they usually electrostats that they do, they have a very narrow dispersion pattern to try to control some of that stuff. And it's worked some years better than others. I've seen it multiple times, but it's a neat system and you can do some really cool things with it.
No, I haven't experienced that one. Next time I go to Expo, I'll have to check it out.
Now, how was your 2-channel experience?
So I was I was on Tidal and I was listening to a couple tracks that I had liked. And I was doing Chocolate Chip Trip just to see how it was comparing between the store or the Trinov and the Lindorf. I got had the circle on the Trinov again. I didn't have the U. 2 room perfect set configurations ago, I had the U. I didn't have the circle. I've got the circle at the moment. So it's also very like room EQ can really change the way your sound field presents itself.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tweak that with EQ too, if you can adjust that on the backside. But I kind of let that play, and then I just let it just go autoplay. So I ran into that. I think Jonathan, you might have mentioned it. That Yoshi Horikawa stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yoshi Horikawa is great.
Yes, like Timbers, I really liked a lot.
I haven't listened to that, man. I'll have to try it.
Yeah, like Timbers and Fluid. Wandering has some cool footstep stuff.
Yeah,
that's a
lot
really
of cool stuff.
Yeah, that was really fun. I hadn't listened to that before.
It's funny when you go through these binges and you're just on autoplay, and then you go back and look at everything you've liked, and it's like the same artist, bam, 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 bam just going down.
Dominique,
she's great.
Yeah, that Birds track. Anytime that clap hit, it just felt like it was jumping off the speakers, like going past you, which was really neat.
Tell me that one again so I can try that one. Something about birds.
Yeah, it's Dominique, FILIS-AIME, Felisame. That Francine 13, Queen Mary is a great track.
That one even sounds good in my vehicle. Like I turn that on the vehicle and it's like all over the place.
There's some great phasing as they move back and forth and panning.
Panning in the original, but when that first big crescendo hits, just everything just leaps out and like fills the room around you, and it's really cool. Mm-hmm. That's a great track for it. I did listen to the Madonna track, that Immaculate Conception, because it was remixed.
But it's not even that track is kind of like an anomaly, right? Because it's not really through the whole thing. It's sort of just that.
No, so it does a lot of stuff where things pull out to the wides, to where your wides would be. Mm-hmm. So you get that stuff that phases kind of from the front to the sides. Not a lot of like center depth, but it had a good set of soundstage. There was good instrument placement. Things were done in a kind of open and spacious nature. One of my favorite ones in the past to just kind of listen to how well I was getting imaging was Two Suns in the Sunset by Pink Floyd. It's the end of the final cut. There's a car that kind of just keeps driving past you as you play the track. And so when I was on the Trinov with the configuration on that, my front soundstage was a little small, and I feel like the car would kind of drive from like the speaker to like the wide and just stop. But with different configurations or different EQs, and you can sound like that car is starting in the distance and just driving all the way past your head, like way out behind you. And it does it multiple times throughout the track, and that's a really kind of neat effect to check out. On the Santana's Supernatural Remastered Edition, the Smooth track opens with a different microphone effect on the main singer, and it sounds like it's, depending on how you're set up, can be like 20 feet recessed. So it sounds like he's singing a hole kind of in a box, and that's a really neat effect. And then when the vocals cut to a different mic and it jumps way forward in the soundstage, that's one that's really neat to check out. What else did I have on here? Honestly, there's some synth stuff in Road to the Gypsy by Adrenaline that's kind of cool. I've got a big long list, but if I go down that, I'm going on a big 80s like synth track. So Ryan, what about you?
So my room sounds, if I get a good track, it all sounds fantastic. So all of the tracks that I had, the soundstage was just enormous. It wasn't that vocalists and stuff were super big. It just made you feel like the sound was encompassing, like it was all around you. It was everywhere. And sometimes I have to check, like, is it doing some kind of upmixing? Is it something going on? But no. And one of the best tracks that I listened to today was Lightning by Stone Fox, Ghost Rider, and Ranji. And that has some of those super fast hits that just come off the speaker that kind of come through the room just above the mid bass region. And it was, if I find a good track, they all have that really similar experience. Chocolate Chip Trip has the sound field that comes through you, like through your head and back behind you. You and I had some fun listening to Wolf Totem this week, and that's always a ton of fun, because it sounds like, to me, when they're singing, it's like he's right in the middle, and then they're all in a line off the sides out into the room, and it's just this amazing experience, especially I have found when you turn all the lights off. Nothing, no light, nothing. You can't see anything, even if your eyes are open. And when you do that, it is just this amazing experience because you've totally removed sight from the equation. You have no perception of anything. It's all your ears, and it is like they're in the room with you. And it is just an immaculate experience. I love 2-channel. So this was, I'm always happy when I get to sit there and listen to some stuff.
With Wolf Totem, though, I think the difference than the subs was much more noticeable than anything else. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Say that again.
The difference in the subs between the two systems, the way they were handling decay and.
Oh yeah, there was some difference in the decay, but I don't think.
Is that something you want to look at more first?
Yeah, I want to look at that a little bit more. Ryan brings up a good question. How much of that is the speaker versus the mix? I honestly think a lot of it is the implementation, the speaker in the room, because how we were able to get my room, the experience center, with seat to seat consistency, the LCR from any seat on the couch is very consistent. Only in the high end does it start falling off for the opposite speaker. And it is, if it's a good mix, like just a good song that's mixed well, it's going to just have that huge soundstage because of how the room is. So it's not that necessarily I have found that the song has to be doing anything specifically. It's just, in my experience so far, it's, if it's done decently, it's just this immaculately wide soundstage. And I think when people come over for the crawl in May, we'll do some 2-channel and they'll get to experience that. But some of the tracks that I listened to were Anthem by Grammatic, More of Just the Same by Infected Mushroom, Now I'm the Fool by Angelina Jordan, Wolf Totem by Hugh, Eight-Legged Dreams by Unlike Pluto. I'm just going to put these in chat, so if people are writing these down, they have them. Take the Highway by Vanatech, Lightning by Stone Fox, Ghost Rider, and Ranji, Recalibrated by Dur's Remix, and Chocolate Chip Trip by Tool. So those are what I listen to. That's my list from today. Before the stream, I was listening before I went to my son's basketball for like an hour while I was working, and that is what we came to. Who did the acoustic engineering for your room? Officina Acoustica did. They did all of the treatments, and then I did all of the room itself. So it turned out phenomenally well. Decay times are around 100, little over 100 milliseconds all the way across. It's a little too dead. I'd like it a little bit livelier, but it's still a fantastic experience. So love the 2-channel.
We've got some suggestions in there from the audience. I'm going to pop a couple of them up on the screen just in case you guys have heard them. I don't know these.
No, but I want to listen to everything that I haven't heard next week.
Yeah.
Till there's nothing left. Okay.
I'm scrolling up.
Yep.
I mean, MW does make a good point that one of the reasons that the Swans are so successful is because there's no crossover from like 400 hertz all the way to 22 kilohertz. So there's only one crossover in the speaker, and they act just like a point source with how they're made. So the imaging is just, I think a big part of it is the equipment to be able to do it really, really well. But
if you take that amazing equipment, you put it in a room that's not set up right, you're just throwing all the money away.
Yeah,
you got to have a room for the room is the most important part.
The room allows you to do a lot more with less.
It allows you to do anything, because if you don't have the room, you're wasting the time on the other stuff.
Yeah,
chasing money through buying equipment, buying cables, buying amps, buying all the crazy stuff. If your room isn't dialed in, you're not going to get any benefit out of it, any of it.
Fix the room,
including the expensive speakers.
Fix the room.
I was nice kind of going back to 2-channel also after listening to some of the Atmos stuff, because the presentation just makes more sense in a lot of music compared to the Atmos, compared to some of these Atmos mixes that come out.
I would agree. There's a lot of garbage Atmos. There's a lot of garbage 2-channel though too.
There is, but I mean, they're 2-channel in general. I mean, just for like band stuff, it's always a good experience of like, most of it's generally mixed. So it's like you're watching a band playing in front of you. It's laid out well. You can hear some separation between instruments. The tracks are at least spread apart. But when you listen to some of these Atmos tracks and they're just throwing like a singer over here and a drum over here and a guitar behind you, it just
all channel stereo.
I'd take over all channel stereo over some of these mixes.
I would too. Some of the mixes are weird.
I mean, I don't want my kick drum on the ceiling and my hi-hat on the left side. I don't want to sit in the drum kit. I mean, I'm not.
I feel like that's kind of diminishing though. When Atmos music first started coming around, there was a lot more of that than there is now. Isn't that? That's been my experience anyway.
No, wasn't there something about the fact that these companies were paying more per track and royalties for
Apple
streaming
does.
for streaming in Atmos. So everyone's just like basically AI upscaling their music to get it in Atmos.
Most of the stuff I listen, I mean, it might depend on the genre you listen to. Most stuff I listen to anymore is getting better than what it used to be.
The stuff that's mastered well is in Atmos. Sounds great.
It does. It absolutely does.
I mean, even to case in point, like Michael Jackson Thriller I mentioned earlier, where it has that little horseshoe. Here's something strange with Apple Music. I can't even find the 2-channel version anymore. Like I found all these different titles of it and it all plays in Atmos. Like it doesn't even, maybe it's not even choosing what I pick or something. It's just picking the Atmos track. I don't know, but the Atmos clearly sounds better than the 2-channel track. It just clearly does. Like the separation and so forth of the different things. It's not like, oh, cool, there's an intro that's a little different. It's very different. There's like wolves howling from the back and there's zombie steps in the, it's like very, very clear. It's not like if I use my imagination, I can kind of sense this, or it's kind of half filling up the room. It's very much filling up the room.
No, would you have a good recording engineer for Atmos or mixing engineer, however they're going to be, that title is correct, and that sets up to make the music an experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's neat and it's a lot of fun to listen to. It gets really addictive. But when it's just, I'm going to take an old song and I'm going to make it Atmos now because why not?
Mm-hmm.
It's not the same.
Yeah. You lose that.
You lose it. You kind of lose that the effect of like having the and that was kind of the issue we're running into with wides, is that it takes some of that power out of the front stage, or out of the front sound stage. So when you go listen to a band, you listen to live music, most of that acoustic energy is in front of you. And when you take it from in front of you and move it, the experience isn't the same.
Yeah, depends on the room. But yeah, I see what you mean.
But like taking stuff out of the front channels and pushing it into wides that's still in the front sound stage, it makes that front sound stage kind of more bigger than it should be, but doesn't sound right. Like each thing is more rendered individually, but when you go listen to a band, it doesn't sound that way. It doesn't sound like each person is 30 feet or standing 30 feet apart playing their own instrument.
Yeah. That's true.
So
we have one question.
I saw the question I did see the question from MW earlier about the Trinov app. And no, I was not using the app on mobile because I have an Android, not an iOS phone. But I did use the Windows one, which really is.
Go ahead, Bob. Sorry.
The Windows one is basically just like a virtual desktop client, which you can just do through Chrome. So you don't even need to use it.
We don't even really have one question. It's just a question about how to get pricing on something. So I'll answer it, but nobody's asked any questions. This is highly unusual.
They're all listening to the music. They've muted us and they've gone to our playlist.
That's fine.
Yeah, so, that's a great way to encourage people.
Ernie Bless asks, Ryan, is there a public list of pricing for Ascendo, or do we need to hit you up one-on-one? There is no publicly listed pricing for Ascendo, so just reach out to me. You can send me an email. Just send it to ryan@ascendav.net, and you'll get in touch with me. And I'll help you out and get you hooked up for whatever you need. So I've got somebody actually coming over tomorrow for a demo for Trinov and Ascendo. So see how that goes. But nobody's asking questions. This is
we
strange.
Need to kind of like write down in the description or even in some of the user suggestions as well. Because I didn't catch all yours. I'm going to have to watch it again and catch your suggestions.
I posted mine in chat.
Okay. I didn't even catch that.
Yeah. I posted it in chat.
I kind of agree with that last comment, though, about Atmos music needing a film track. More Atmos music videos would actually be really cool.
Oh, yes. That would be cool. I was like, film track? What are you talking about? That's weird.
Yeah, but I mean, more MTV.
Yeah, that would be cool.
With actual music and not the real world.
That would be cool. Ryan Kramer, he's self-deprecating because he was the one not wanting this to get bigger. Says, don't forget to crawl, man. It's filling up fast. Jonathan, do you want to talk about that?
Sure, we can mention it. We're at kind of a strange place because we put this on AVS Forum 3 days ago and we're already almost at 50 people. So like we don't know exactly where we're going to be comfortable cutting it off, but it's got to be somewhat soon. Just from a logistics standpoint, we have 6 theaters in the Kansas City area, all really nice theaters. Like the minimum amount of subs at any of them is 418s, and that's like JTRs, so it's not even like wimpy 18s. and some of the theaters have like Ryan's on the Ascend AV Mads VR Center has how many 11 subs, and one of them's a 50-inch, and one of the guys has
Sheldon's
16
got
subs.
The most.
Who?
Sheldon's
got 16 18s. So you're going to have your bass covered. And then we got a nice array of different types of speakers. So like, it's going to be a great crawl. I mean, if you've never done a home theater crawl, this is going to be a really fun one. We'll probably have an activity Friday night. A lot of times we'll take over a movie theater and like a commercial movie theater and just kind of all hang out, watch a movie together, introduce each other. Maybe go to someone's room afterwards and hang out. And then Saturday will probably be the crawl day. And Sunday is still sort of up in the air. If we
don't know what's going to happen then.
If we have another big group together or if we open up more theater, I mean, we might even have more hosts. Right now we have 6. We might open that up more. We're still kind of like the data's settled. All the details are not, but it will be fun. So if it's this, like if you've never done one before and you're interested, they're really a lot of fun.
So here's what you should do. You should
put the link in chat.
Go to the link that Jonathan's going to post. If you would like to go, post that you would like to go. Now at this point, depending on how many people post, we cannot promise that you're going to be able to go because we have to draw the line at attendees somewhere because we can only fit so many people in everybody's houses, and we don't want to burden everybody with 100 people at their house at the same time. I'm a masochist. I do that to myself. I will happily do it, but not everybody else wants to do that. So if you want to go, I highly suggest you put a link in there or you respond in that thread. Now, please only respond if the likelihood that you're going to go is very high, because if everybody just says, yeah, I'm going to go, it can really skew the numbers. So we want to make sure that we've got an accurate count. If you think and are highly likely to go, please do put it in there and put it in there soon so that your likelihood of being able to attend goes up. because it will be a first come, first serve. So whoever signed up first, I think at this point is how we're going to do it, but that may change.
Yeah, so if you don't have the link in the chat, the live chat, you can just go to AVS Forum and search for May 2025 Kansas City Home Theater Crawl, and you'll find it. You'll find kind of our game plan. You'll see a list of the theaters and the gear that's in them. The thread's still kind of being developed. Like this, we've done this several times. This isn't the first one. It won't be the last one, but it has been a while since we've done it. The last one was in 2017, and we've had 30 to 50 people most years. We're kind of already there. But yeah, I mean, just at this point, it's almost like a reunion because we've met a lot of the guys. It's kind of fun to get back together with them. We'll meet some new faces as well. Like it's really fun. It's a good day.
It is a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Tiring day, but it's fun. Yeah. There is one question, and then we can, I guess, call it if nobody else asks anything. So Nicholas Romanos asks, I have a 14 by 14 foot room with dual RS2s. Good Lord. In the front corners. They both promote 10 hertz to 50 hertz. I have a whole 50 to 120. How can I make that better without getting more subs? You have a room mode, my friend.
Yep. Move your subs.
Probably where you're sitting.
Move your subs or move your butt.
That is right. I mean, he's absolutely right. You have a room mode. You have a null where you're sitting. I bet you if you move around the room, you're going to be able to hear that.
Yeah, my subs, I've only got 2 subs in my space right now. My room is 14 and a half by 42 in its current state. And I tried a couple of the standard positions. I tried corners, and I had some pretty nasty room modes. I tried sides like a third along the way of the room. That didn't work out so well for me. I tried, moving them back and forth. And actually the best position for me is in between the front speakers. I've got both subs sitting in between the front speakers. Probably there's a big acoustic treatment set there, but they're probably 2 feet off the front wall. But where they're at right there, they working together. I have no nulls or modes that overtake my sound field.
Also it may not be placement. It could just be phase.
It could be phase too.
They could be out of phase. Did you calibrate this room? If you did, try just moving forward a foot and moving back a foot and see if it changes.
Yeah.
So this guy, I think I'm going to exercise my ban hammer option here. Block.
Yeah, that sounds like some fighting words when I heard those come up.
It's all good.
It's all good. I mean, that's the correct answer. Memphis, pick your area. They're all good.
Well, we will never hear from him again. I banned him. So, bye, Paul. I'm kidding.
Bye, Paul. MWS Ryan, how come you don't have waveforming set up? I do have waveforming set up. It works.
And it works really well.
It absolutely works. So there's direct live bass control, art, optimizer, and waveforming.
Mm-hmm.
All 4.
And we were playing around this week. I heard the first difference between waveforming and art in a noticeable way.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't come up very often, but there was a difference. And that wasn't really waveforming. It was more of active room treatment versus no active room treatment. Because,
no, I meant on the Who.
Oh, the bass stuff? Oh,
yeah. That was noticeable, and that was...
Well, we need to dive more into that to figure that out. Yeah. Jamie says, square rooms are tricky. Mine is almost that size, and it took me a lot of measuring and moving subs and seating positions. Yeah.
Sometimes you end up not putting them symmetrically in a square room. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you have one like a third point in and one maybe halfway in or a fourth point in, because not having them symmetrical kind of helps defeat the square symmetric issue.
So Nicholas says he measured both subs individually with Rue, but did you measure them together?
I did.
Because you'd want to start adding some basic stuff individually, not a whole lot, because a lot of times those individual really small measurements or all of those measurements that you just put in, all those filters, just out the window when you put them together. Because you'll turn those filters off when you put the subs together and it did nothing. So you definitely want to measure together.
What are you using to integrate those subs together? Are you using like a base EQ from a receiver or processor? Are you trying to do it manually? Are you doing it through a mini DSP? If he responds, because that's going to be, you got to have the right tool in order to put them together.
There's a question for you. And before we go to the question, somebody put another one in there about a Cars track that what he said was excellent right here, since that was the topic of the. I'll put that up there real quick.
Mm-hmm. That's a great track.
Okay, I'll hide that again.
Are you talking about this one from Kevin Orr?
Yeah.
Seymour Screens, is the Excellent line much better than the consumer line? The Neo's pretty good.
The Neo's really good.
It really is going to come down to what you need, right? Because the Center Stage XD offers something different than what the Neo does. The Center Stage XD is it's a little bit higher gain than the Neo is, but the Neo is a finer weave. So you could potentially sit closer to it, and it's got a slightly better acoustic performance, but it's got a lower gain. It's marginally under 0.7. So
0.85, I think, on the other one.
Yeah. And then you have the Pro, which is, I think, above that, maybe?
The Lightner Pro. It's the one you had on the board.
Yeah, I don't remember.
It was a little bit coarser. It was a little bit coarser. I think it was a slightly higher gain.
Yeah. But really, Kevin, what it's going to come down to is you need to buy the screen based on the use case. Mm-hmm. What are you doing with the screen, and what hurdles are you trying to overcome? Is it seating distance? Are you a 2-channel person? Do you like valuing audio over video above all else? Do you value video? What are you trying to do? And once you answer those questions, you can then choose the screen that best fixes those compromises, right? We need to be taking the tact of using equipment to fix issues in a room, right? Not trying to build the room around the equipment. So you've got to establish, what am I lacking in my room? What do I need to fix? And then get, in this case, a screen that best allows you to defeat those compromises.
And with certain projectors, I mean, Ryan, you've experienced this a bunch. There, you can have some incompatibility issues with certain weaves, with certain weave orientations, with certain materials, and different types of light sources or light intensities.
I don't think it's as bad on most people's projectors. I think it's really more of a high output thing.
I think it's mostly a high output thing, but it sounds like some other people with 3 laser projectors have issues with certain types of screens too.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's all of them or if it's that particular lens, because we're all using the same lens. I don't know.
I was referring to like the smaller 3 laser stuff.
Oh yeah.
Because they've I guess they're running into issues with sparkle and other things that people are trying to defeat. So you've got to take into account what issues the projectors has. That's that whole thing that we keep getting told of. You marry your screen and you date your projector. So buy a really expensive screen isn't necessarily a good advice, because the screen that you have for the projector you have right now might not be the right screen for the next projector you have.
Yeah.
Especially as you go to like 3-chip laser projectors. There's a lot of talk on that on AVS format, how their screens are showing sparkle and they need to switch something else.
Welcome to 2 minutes ago, Jonathan.
Sorry, I was reading comments.
It's okay. He's adorable. Fine.
I can only do one thing at once.
Yeah, I mean, I had the same issue with sparkle too on ALR screens, because everyone thinks that ALR screens, because their overall gain is not very high. Oh, it's like a 1.2 or 1.3 gain screen, it'll be fine. Most ALR screens are like a 1.8 or 2 gain screen, because they start at a very black base layer or dark layer, and they had a ton of gain on top of it to get it back to a close to a neutral or positive gain. So on like that Firehawk I've got, when I switched from a bulb projector to a laser projector, I had so much sparkle I couldn't watch it on anything but low. So it was the wrong screen for that projector.
Yeah. Good question. John Durant, I have 4 18-seat and subs. I'm adding 4 more to the rear of the theater, contemplating recessing them into the wall for aesthetics. Would you recommend this? Have you seen anyone recess subs in before?
Ryan?
I did. They were my sidewalls. I had 2 4,000 ULF captivators that fired into the room from the sidewalls. If they were in the room, it just wouldn't have worked. And that was actually that guy's idea to make that work. So they can absolutely work as long as they fire into the room.
Mm-hmm.
Shouldn't really affect anything, except you're limiting yourself on placement, because they're going to stay there. You can't move them around. But no, you'd be fine. No issue.
And your ability to, and possibly your ability to isolate the room.
I mean, it's kind of like how mine are now. They're in baffle walls.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So we're great. They just got to be placed correctly. Because if you place them incorrectly, they're going to be a big pain to move. But with your setup, 4 in the front and 4 in the rear, that should be fine.
Yeah. Especially if you're setting them up for a double base array.
Yeah. Maybe good.
It just got real complicated all of a sudden.
More subs. You need more than 4 and 4.
4 and 4 is a pretty good number.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, I mean 818s. I'm an advocate that 818s is a really good place to land.
Needs
really good place to land.
16 or bust.
Yeah, and if they're ported, yes, it does depend on where the ports are firing MW.
That will, yes. Super chat 65 SEK. I have no idea what currency that is. Big Street Cinema, thank you very much. Much appreciated. Never expected. If you take full active Genelec 7.1.4 passive subs and electronics in a different room, into a different room, install tips regarding power and analog cable to next room. Oh, so all of his electronics are in one room and the speakers are in the other. I mean,
he's got active speakers. He's saying the Genelec are monitors.
Yes.
So he's using XLR to all of his speakers and his subs. Well, no, passive subs. So active speakers, passive subs.
But then he needs to have power outlets near every speaker also.
Yeah, but then it's just put power outlets next to the speakers, and then XLR is not going to care as long as it's true XLR and it's actually balanced.
Right.
They do have different grades of XLR. The tip would be not to run the power and the XLR together as much as you can avoid. And a lot of people will say if you have to cross the two between power and XLR, cross it perpendicular so there's less time where it's running together. Unless you're running really long XLR, you probably won't have a problem with this. Probably won't.
No.
But again, the same thing. I mean, if you're in a room and like that, you can run one above and one below, so the two can never go anywhere near each other.
Yeah, most of the time with people like you're going to have outlets right next to the speakers anyway. I would think in most
or they'll
situations.
have to be within reach. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you can't do that, yes, don't run the power and XLR necessarily next to each other. But theoretically, XLR should reject that interference if it's
it should
solid,
reject
if it's a good cable.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming that the input source and the output are both balanced, are both actually balanced, because a lot of that stuff that claims it's balanced isn't. It just runs an XLR connection.
A lot, but
in the consumer side, yes, Genelec probably not, but it depends on what you're going to be driving them from.
Big Street Cinema says 10 to 14 meters of XLR.
You should be plenty fine on that.
You're going to be fine.
Yeah.
XLR should be able to run like 100 meters.
Long way.
Before you start having big concerns.
Long way. You should YouTube some of the concert setups and people following the XLR cable. Some of those are really long.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite crazy, but you'll be fine.
Especially if you use one with a decent gauge. If you use one with like the little tiny 28 gauge wires in it or 26 gauge wires in it, maybe at longer distances, you might have some attenuation issues, but at short distances, probably not. And then you can buy the larger gauge stuff for next to nothing. Also, I think Monoprice has some higher gauge.
Or just do it right and buy Mogami and don't worry about it.
I have some. It's great. Mogami is better for rejecting microphonics, but that shouldn't be an issue in XLR anyway.
Paul A. Hey, Jonathan, how do you think the new UMA team will do in Parts Express flat pack? Thinking about doing my first DIY.
I think that's a good match. I mean, they're building it to work together. The sub, it's a little smaller than ideal for a flat pack, just for shipping and cost and price and stuff. If you were building it yourself, you'd use a little bit bigger box in the sealed style. But it's going to be fine. It's going to work well, and it's going to knock your socks off, and it's inexpensive. I mean, you're talking like it's like $250 for the flat pack box and $300 for the sub or something like that. So for $550 plus amp, that's a killer setup. You'll like it a lot. Figure out how you're going to finish it. What are you going to do with that? You're going to do like basically a Rhino liner type paint on it, Duratex or whatever? Or are you going to carpet or paint it or stain it, or what are you thinking about with that?
Duratex is crazy easy to go. You don't need a lot of good surface finish on it. Clean your corners up and make sure they're reasonably smooth. You'll hide a lot in a textured flat paint.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you paint OSB, then you don't hide anything. Ask me how I know.
You gotta sand slightly smooth. And the problem with Durtex is that was water-based paint, wasn't it?
I don't think so.
Is it water-based? Were you using the water-based one?
I don't know.
You're bubbled a lot for a solvent-based paint.
It bubbled because of the OSB. I don't know. I don't know what it was.
Paul somehow got past my block, and he's offering to bring us beef ribs from Texas as an offering in comparison.
No.
We don't want your Texas ribs.
I think that's a great idea. Mostly because just more barbecue is better barbecue. It doesn't matter where it comes from.
Yeah. Sounds fun.
That's it. Nobody else is asking questions. We got a short stream. Topic for next week before we let everybody go?
Well, wait a minute. MW says the problem is the passive subs. I don't agree with that. Why are passive subs a problem?
My subs are just as far as that, and it's not an issue. You just got to get properly gauged cable and make sure they're not crossing anything they shouldn't. And even then, no.
In most residential size rooms, I mean, the difference between running a speaker cable versus running an XLR cable is kind of pointless.
10 meters is far.
Yours run further than that.
I think some of my speaker wires are like 75 feet long. Yeah, granted, they're 12.4.
They're 12.4.
Yeah, you just got to gauge it properly and make sure they're not crossing anything and they've got decent shielding on them.
I think, in my experience, there's far less noise when you're running the speaker wire than signal cable, especially if you're doing RCA. XLR, not so much, but
I wouldn't worry about it too much. I mean, I'm walking the walk, and I don't have any issues.
You run passive. Yeah, you run a long cable to that 50.
And the 21s.
And the 21s. Well, the 50 is a long run, and that takes a lot of power.
Yeah, you want to keep them ideally as close to the speakers as possible, but it's not hurting anything. As long as it's gauged properly.
Yeah, in an ideal world, if you're going to do it, keep your amps closer to your speakers, run longer XLR cables because
ideally, the amp is in the speaker.
Or put the amp in the speaker.
But you can't always have ideal.
Now. You're talking circles. You said you can use passive amps, and then you're saying ideally the amp goes in the speaker.
No, I'm just saying,
no, I'm saying ideally it's not going to happen. There's not going to be no downside to using passive subs in a residential size space.
But I'm not. Whatever. It's not hurt. I don't have any issues.
No, you'll be fine.
That I'm aware of.
Not this week.
Not yet. Maybe tomorrow. We'll find out. I'll come back next week and be like, guys, it wasn't HDMI. It was my speaker wires because they were too long.
Once HDMI 2.2 hits, then you're going to have a whole new sea of issues.
Don't. I don't. I'm going to have to deal with that enough at ISE in a couple weeks. I don't.
When is that stuff supposed to when is an actual HDMI 2.2 device?
I don't know. I'm just going to have to deal with HDMI a lot during that in the next couple weeks when I'm at ISE. So hopefully the new cables that are coming from Cords and Metro are going to be great, but we shall see. Next topic.
There's no more questions.
There's no more questions. I know, but what do you want your next week's topic to be?
I saw a thread that was kind of interesting that was talking about subwoofers over $5,000 and which ones are worthwhile. Kind of an interesting thread on ADL.
Oh, yeah, I remember that thread, and he was talking about like listing all of these different subwoofers that were.
It was just kind of like an updated thing for me because I hadn't priced subwoofers in a long time.
They're getting more and more expensive.
They are.
Dude, it's interesting because some companies haven't seemed to move their price that much over the last 10 or 15 years that we've been in this hobby enthusiast hard. And then some have really jumped their prices. And then there's some that are like, $30,000 for an 18 and stuff. And at that point, you're starting to wonder a little bit. I thought it was kind of an interesting thread. It could be an interesting topic. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, the tough part on that is the more expensive the sub, with very few exceptions, the less information you're going to find out about it from measurement standpoints. Because unless someone actually took the measurements,
that could get really political though.
Too sensitive?
Just being honest. I'll have to think about what topic. Chat. MW says his speaker inductance important. Yeah.
Done. Topic done.
No. Nobody's going to want to join a channel. Is speaker inductance important? No.
Well, it's important.
It's
important in cabling, important in amps. It's important. It's got a lot of stuff that's important. Got to match your equipment.
I don't know. I have to think about it. I can't come up with anything. Ryan Kramer, have him on so we can talk about soundproofing. We could talk about how to properly schedule a crawl.
We need to have a Zoom call about that tomorrow with
the
people, the hosts, get some of this ironed out.
We do. Okay. Well, I'm not going to sit here and stare into the vast void trying to think of a topic. We'll have to think about one, and I'll post it.
Is this our first audio podcast where nobody complained about our sound? Like our very first one?
Because I'm not using my speakers. People are just
been doing this for 3 years, and this is the first one.
Evidently.
Somebody's
going to complain now.
It's probably Paul. Get him blocked for sure.
Don't do that. He's going to kill you with barbecue.
Oh,
he'll bring such good stuff that no one can even look at it.
Yeah.
And then
best computer setup. We could do gaming and home theater.
That could be kind of fun.
That could be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We'll do
I don't
that.
mind that.
We'll do that. Gaming and home theater. All right. Well, nobody else is asking questions. So this is where we call it. And we'll do gaming and home theater next week. I'm going to listen to more Chew Channel. I'm going to try and go back through and grab everybody's responses when I have time and give them a listen and see what I think. And then I can come back next week and say how much I didn't like any of the suggestions. I'm kidding. I'll probably love all of them. I'm pretty easy to please when it comes to music. Any going out remarks, gents?
Oops, sorry. No, I haven't looked at that driver yet, but I will.
Jonathan?
Nothing for me.
Okay. Well, until next time, ladies and gentlemen, gaming and home theater next week. Stay safe out there.